After playing over 50 hours of Donkey Kong Bonanza, it's safe to say that I found every secret detail around the different layers and their sub-layers. And this is no easy feat, as there's tons of areas you can visit in this game. After discovering all of this, I decided to make a video, going over the top 20 secrets and Easter eggs in this brand new Switch 2 experience, explaining their relevance and where you can find them. Oh yeah, and before we get started, my name is Copycat, and if you haven't yet, then please subscribe to my channel, hitting that bell to stay notified when I upload new videos. Starting things off at number 20 is the fact that you can come across Cranky Kong in each lair, but he's always hard to find, needing to think outside of the box in some moments to get to him. When you do talk to him, he'll go on long, winding rants, discussing things like his rival in overalls, who's a reference to Jumpman, who might not actually be Mario in this game. I'll go through that a little bit later. As well as mentioning DK fighting a croc foe, which is an obvious reference to King k.rool. At times he even calls DK the so-called leader of the bunch, which is what he's referred to as in the DK64's DK rap.
He's the leader of the bunch, you know him well. He's finally back to kick some tail.
Finally, in the planet core, he calls King k.rool a coward because he uses his gizmo to zip around like some sort of buzzboy, which is a reference to his helicopter jetpack that he uses in a few of the games, including Super Smash Bros. Going on to say, climb a girder or two, a clear nod to the platforms that were used in the original Donkey Kong arcade entry. And the DK here is either supposed to be his son or his grandson, which I find odd, but whatever. One thing I noticed immediately when I played this title is how Nintendo took classic tunes from past entries and remastered or remixed them for this experience. So at number 19, I want to show off each one and where they're from. The notable standouts here include the DK artist theme that combines Simian Segway and the bonus room Blitz from Donkey Kong Country 1. The Rambi Rumble theme that's a recreation of Rambi's theme from Donkey Kong 64. The King K. Rool battle theme mainly references Crocodile Cacophony from Donkey Kong Country 2. The getaway tune that plays is literally just the DK rap, which is one of my favorite video game themes of all time. In the 4 2D throwback challenge courses, there are classic songs that play like the DK Island Swing, Sticker Burst Symphony, Minecart Madness,
Here's a banana!
and the Round 1 theme from the OG arcade title. Finally, there's the bonus stage theme, which is just Token Tango, which is the bonus song that plays in Donkey Kong Country 2. Coming in at number 18 is the funny added feature where you can high-five basically any NPC in the game, at times evoking some pretty funny responses from whoever you're interacting with. To do this, you just need to go up to them and press the usual punch button to initiate this gesture, where normally they'll just reciprocate it in an excited manner, showing how you're seen as friendly to pretty much everybody. However, there are some funny responses that I've seen to this action, which include Grumpy Kong being stunned by what you're doing and just allowing himself to get hit, Cranky Kong looking like his arm is about to fall off as he's old and you do hit him pretty hard. A few NPCs actually change outfits when you hit them for some unknown reason, almost as if you're breaking their outer layer and this is what they're wearing underneath. And lastly, when you high-five Dixie Kong, she just twirls around, which is tied to her abilities as she uses her hair almost like helicopter blades. And Diddy Kong hilariously hops on one leg, I think out of excitement for seeing his old buddy again. Next up, what I want to look at number 17 all has to do with the little dance Pauline can be seen doing during the Bonanza events, after you return the record to the elders, as is actually a throwback nod to what she can be seen doing in the original DK arcade entry. Now, I'm not sure if her 8-bit version is doing a happy dance or something more out of distress, but it's still nice that the developers included a nod like this, even if it is small and not noticeable to everybody. Next up at number 16, I want to look at the fossils and how each layer has their own to collect that are all throwback Easter eggs to Donkey Kong's past friends and enemies. A bit of a morbid thing, as technically this means that they're all dead? The preserved bug from the freezer layer is the stingers or buzzbees from the original Country series. The beaver from the forest layer is just the gnawly foes from a few of the levels in the original Country game. The pig, also from the forest layer, is a character from DK Returns and Tropical Freeze named Professor Chops, who acts as the tutorial guide in those games. The spider, also found in the forest layer, is a reference to Squidder the spider, which is one of the animal friends that you can ride in DK Country 2. The frog, anglerfish, and swordfish in the Tempest layer are more friends in Winky, Glimmer, and On Guard, where that swordfish is one of my favorite friends of all time. The banana bird, armadillo, and sea urchins are all foes in some of the games in the Country series. An old tire found in the Feast layer, which for some reason has become synonymous in the series of being used primarily as something to bounce off of. The robot, also in the Feast layer, is meant to be the chaos bot that King k.rool creates as a boss in DK Country 3. And finally, there are 3 found in the planet's core in the 8-bit barrel, DK's iconic item. The 8-bit items, which are just Pauline's items that she lost in Super Mario Odyssey, which is super random, we'll get to that later. And finally an 8-bit DK, which is just supposed to be a younger version of Cranky Kong. So finding this of him, meaning he's supposedly dead, or maybe this is DK's dad and Cranky Kong's son who's dead, it doesn't make sense other than, if you try to force it, but maybe don't think about it too much because some of these don't make sense anyways. Just to note, specifically I'm talking about those items, they don't really make any sense at all because, you see young Pauline in this game and she doesn't lose those items in Super Mario Odyssey until she's much older, so I have no idea what's going on with the time here. I would just say, don't count the fossils as being part of the lore. In the 15th spot is a blink and you'll miss it Easter egg that can be seen on the fossil maps that you can find in the treasure chests or bought at the stores, which reveal the location of one of those on the map. For some reason, the image imprinted on it isn't of the layer that you're in, but is of the northern Cremisphere overworld of Donkey Kong Country 3, specifically this part right here. I can't find any clear reason to why this is the case, as there's no particular relation that this image has to fossils at all. There's also the Bonanza gem map that has an image on it, but I couldn't make out what it's supposed to be after looking at it and looking around for a while, so let me know if you know the answer in the comments below. One thing that diehard fans will recognize instantly is that the Bonanza transformations you can unlock and use are references to some of the animal buddies from the past titles, copying over most of their abilities in the process as well. This is obvious with the ostrich, which lets you glide around in midair, the snake, which allows you to get really high up in the air, and the elephant, a nod to Ellie the elephant, that can not only vacuum up water this time, but basically anything else that's breakable in this game. The only odd one out is the zebra that I believe is new for this entry, but I did find it in the background of a level of DK Country Returns, so maybe it always existed and just wasn't seen that often until now. At the lucky number 13 spot are the different rehearsal halls that open up after you complete the game by beating King k.rool and returning Pauline to the surface, letting you play through several hard challenges featuring the elder Bonanzas. And when I say hard, I actually do mean some of the hardest platforming and puzzle solving that you can come across throughout the levels, ending things off with a harmonial one that we'll talk about a bit later in this video. At number 12, I want to look at what's the final lair that you can access in the game in the planet core. That unlocks after you beat Void Kong, who you initially think is the game's final boss. Once you finally get to this place where the Banandium root is found, you also come across an imprisoned King k.rool and his crew, having to battle him out for this prize in some pretty elaborate ways. There's also a ton of gold that you can collect in this place that will help you out in a pinch if you need some, especially if you're equipped with the right outfits that we'll talk about in a little bit. One of the most confusing things about Donkey Kong Bonanza is where exactly it fits on Mario's timeline. Especially as here, Pauline is a young teenager, where in Super Mario Odyssey, she's pretty old and is the mayor of New Donk City. However, there's one theory that I've come up with, and I've seen other people talk about at number 11, which is that the original Pauline that we see in the Donkey Kong arcade entry is actually Pauline's grandmother, something she sort of alludes to in some of the dialogue in the game. This also makes sense as Lady, the damsel in distress in the DK arcade entry, has blonde hair, and Pauline is clearly a brunette. Where you're actually able to pay homage to this, as there's an outfit where you wear a dress that's very similar, and put on a blonde wig, which is really cool. If you forget about every other game, like the Mario entries and other games involving Donkey Kong, then this sort of makes sense. Although, if it's the same Mario in both that DK arcade entry and in Super Mario Odyssey, then he has to be some sort of immortal godlike being in the same vein as Franklin Richards or Peter Pan. Again, we'll talk about this in a little bit. I might have a theory of what's going on, and it kind of includes the Super Mario Bros. Movie, so just bear with me. At number 10, I want to look at the surprise appearance of New Donk City, a kingdom that made its debut in Super Mario Odyssey as Pauline's hometown. Here appearing again at the end of the game as the surface world that needs to be saved from King k.rool. This is a great secret that Nintendo completely hid from the commercials, and that the developers really didn't need to include, but it shows how this is meant to be a spiritual successor to that Switch entry. Unfortunately, you can only go here during the King k.rool boss battle, and you can't revisit it afterwards. A bit of a letdown, but again, they didn't have to include this, so I will give them some props. Next up at 9, I want to look at how DK's best friends, Diddy and Dixie Kong, show up in this title but only in one place in the racing lair, where you do just that against them to gain a couple of bananas. It's disappointing that this is the only place in the game where you can come in contact with these classic characters, which is a bit of a letdown, as I sort of wish you could switch Pauline out for one of these and, maybe gain different abilities, but that might be left for the sequel and I might be thinking ahead too far. Up next in number 8, I want to mention the 2D stages that are obvious callbacks to past levels in the series, each having a specific theme that still works well in this 3D title. This includes Minecart Country, which is an obvious nod to those minecart stages that have popped up in pretty much every single game in the series. Bramble Country, which is an homage to those tough stages in Donkey Kong Country 2, which are completely covered in spiny vines and usually contain blast barrels that you need to use to traverse forward. Arcade Country, which is set within the world that the OG arcade entry was, with girders as platforms. And finally, Nostalgia Country, which reminds me a lot of the very first level of DK Country 1, even containing the same Easter egg where you can find DK's house on top of the beginning cliff, entering it and getting a prize for your exploration, here being a banana. Oh yeah, also I'm surprised they took away swimming in this game, as swimming was a huge part of the original Donkey Kong series, where you can kind of wade in the water in some of the layers, but you can't actually dive into it, so maybe that's something in the future as well they're going to add. At number 7, I want to look at a few costumes, but more specifically what exactly they're references to from past entries in the series, and maybe even other Nintendo franchises. These are seen primarily through what Pauline can wear, which can all be found in the style shops of each layer in exchange for fossils. Beginning here with the Diva dress, which is the most obvious as it's exactly what Mayor Pauline wears in Super Mario Odyssey. This is specifically during her Jump Up Superstar performance, as otherwise she's sort of wearing this pantsuit and her iconic Carmen Sandiego looking hat, which I'm surprised isn't wearable in this game. There's also the Lady dress, which I explained earlier is the true outfit Pauline, aka Lady, is seen wearing in the original arcade entry. Again, even having her wear the blonde wig to match more like what she looked like, or at least what her grandma looked like. There's also the gold mining gear that reminds me a lot of Mario's outfit from Super Mario Maker, albeit it's more of a vibe than an actual nod, as Mario's was more of a construction worker thing than a mining thing, but whatever. And lastly, there's the Prime Feast apparel that apparently I believe is a nod to Jughead from the Archie series. Equipped with his crown and iconic Letterman jacket, where I'm guessing someone at Nintendo just really loves that character and thought it fit well in this sort of food-like lair where there's burgers galore. In the 6th spot, I want to look at all of the k.rool based Easter eggs that appear once you come across the villain in the planet's core, calling back things from older games in some creative ways. First off is that the boss is equipped with a gun that's super similar to the one that he uses in Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy Kong's Quest, firing projectiles out of it that don't exactly travel in a straight line and that you either need to dodge or send back at him to deal damage. Once you beat him in this initial fight, there's a credit scene that rolls that is quite obviously a spoof of what would roll at the end of those country games when you get the fake ending, where every name is just a bad guy on k.rool's crew and not actually the people who developed the game. The next is his use of his helicopter jetpack. That's not only a thing that he uses in Donkey Kong Country 3's boss battle, but also is incorporated into his Super Smash Bros. Character's abilities as his upbeat recovery. He uses it here to beat DK and Pauline to the surface so that he can catch and use the Bananza route before them and transform New Donk City into a corrupted version of itself. Here at one point, k.rool actually recreates his boxing ring from DK64 and uses it as an area for a boss fight. But unfortunately, he never takes out his iconic boxing gloves and tries to punch you, which is a bit of a misstep in my opinion. Okay, so I've already talked about this next one a bunch before in this video, but at number 5, I want to express my theory / observations on how Donkey Kong Bonanza is clearly a prequel to Super Mario Odyssey. The biggest piece of evidence to this is Pauline herself, who here is 13 years old, but in Super Mario Odyssey when you come across her, she's the mayor of New Donk City and is clearly a fully grown woman. Now, I sort of explained how this ties into the original DK arcade entry, as I think that Pauline is actually her grandma, as that Donkey Kong is Donkey Kong's grandpa. So it sort of makes sense that they went with that theme and sort of changing her origin, rather than just ignoring lore like Nintendo always does. That also means that Mario / Jumpman that we see in the DK arcade entry might actually be Mario's grandfather that we see in the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Now, there's no backstory to that character, aka Mario's dad, at all anywhere in Nintendo lore, so this is sort of just me hypothesizing this and fitting the pieces together. Something that I've done before, and you know what, Nintendo lore doesn't make sense. All of the timelines are all over the place, especially in the Mario series, so you kind of have to take this with a grain of salt and fit things together that don't really fit, you know what I mean? At number 4, I want to look at the secret boss and battle rush challenges that can be unlocked through Grumpy Kong and the Ingot Isle lair after you've beaten the game, and if you have 5,000 gold for each one. These are some of the hardest things that you can come across in the game that I've already talked about at length in my top 20 hardest bananas video. Needing to go through several rooms of different enemies and bosses, each with a twist that you hadn't necessarily come across yet during your playthrough. I think each one took me about half an hour to 45 minutes to complete, which in this somewhat easy game is actually quite a long time, as there's no checkpoints, so once you die, you go back to the beginning, having to start over and trying to complete everything again without dying. After you've unlocked both the boss and battle rushes, then you can return to Grumpy Kong and pay him a whopping 120,000 gold to create what I want to talk about at number 3, the DK statue. Not only after this can you continuously return to this spot to collect oodles of gold, but you're also given a Bananium gem called the best of the bunch, proving that this is one of the most difficult to get in the game. So not only do you have to beat the game, unlock both of the secret rushes, but also gather that large amount of gold that can be tricky at first. Although if Pauline's equipped with her mining outfit, and DK is wearing his bolo banana tie, this increases your chances of getting more upon collection, so it does make it a little bit easier. Now, this isn't exactly told to you and you have to find this out yourself, especially as I did this all within the first few days of this coming out, and there weren't any guides yet, so I kind of was going in blind. In the penultimate spot in this video is what's considered to be the hardest level of this game, on par with the Long Journey's End from Super Mario Odyssey, in the Harmonial Rehearsal Hall, unlocked once you've completed all other 5, and here found in the planet's core. To complete this really hard challenge with no checkpoints, you have to make great use of your Bonanza abilities, your problem solving aka your brain, and your hardcore platforming skills. As again, if you die, you have to go all the way back to the start, which sucks. It took me about 30 hours to finally reach this secret, which is actually insane as I initially intended to stream this game until I beat it, and this is technically the last place, so I would have been streaming for 30 hours until I got here, and that would have been actually ridiculous. I'm sort of surprised about how big this game actually is, and I am happy about that. It's actually bigger than Super Mario Odyssey, and it seems like there's way more secrets to find. Now, at number 1 as the most secret thing in this game, I want to look at what's the oddest thing that you can wear in it in the invisible tie. That when put on turns Donkey Kong and Pauline completely invisible. This is only achieved by unlocking that DK statue through Grumpy that we talked about in number 3, where you then need to talk to Poppy Kong, who says that you've been such a good customer that you deserve a gift. This allows you to challenge yourself even further, where you now can try to complete all of the tough challenges in the state. Something that I might make a video on in the future, or a live stream, who knows? Just know it's actually a lot of fun and hard to use this. Alright, that's gonna be it for today's video, guys. I really hope you did enjoy this one. If you did, please leave a like, comment below what you thought about it, and of course subscribe to my channel. I hope you all have a good day, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!